Hello and welcome to Salop Cast. We're back again. It's episode 14 of the season. Welcome back, Mike. How are you doing?
All right, yeah, pretty good considering the last few set of results we've had. If we, gloss over Saturday a little bit, it's been a fantastic couple of weeks about a week or so since we podded last. So looking forward to getting stuck into some really positive conversations today, I think, actually.
Yeah, cool. Yes, we got 3 wins to talk about, and obviously the defeat to Walsall yesterday, which to talk about. But yeah, still a lot of positives to talk about. And yeah, welcome on the podcast, Keith. First time you've been on the podcast. Welcome on. So yeah, great to hear. A little introduction. When did you start supporting Shrewsbury? When we started following them, and also we've got you on because you're doing a crazy run. I think it's fair to say, but for a wonderful charity.
Yes, thank you, Ollie. Thanks very much for inviting me along. It was a very strange sensation this morning, waking up disappointed because we'd actually lost a game, which was something I haven't experienced for at least 2 whole weeks. Yes, thanks. As you'll gather, if you're watching this on YouTube, I've got a photograph behind me which kind of represents the vintage. Really, that's Sammy Chapman and Paul Maguire just after Shrewsbury had beaten Man City in the FA Cup in 1979, when, along with my school friend Ian Davis, we were the first 2 people into the ground that day. Literally the first 2 people in when the gates opened at 12:30. Madness. The first game came a little while before then. At the age of 10, I remember walking into town. Imagine this, at 10 years old, you walk into town with 2 friends from school, Michael Goodwin and Simon Wright, all from Mount Pleasant Juniors, walking in from Heath Farm. Brentford at home, a 1-0 win, David Collier penalty at the Wakeman end. I didn't even have to look that up, I promise you. I remember it because I was stood right behind the goal. Obviously I've been, through all the ups and downs ever since.
Cool, yeah, so, yeah.
And as for the run, which is, I guess, one of the main reasons you've invited me along, on the 23rd of April, I shall be setting off from London, from the pedestrian tunnel at Greenwich, and attempting to reach the pedestrian tunnel under the Tyne at Jarrow, but via a rather circuitous route, which takes me along National Cycle Network Route 1, which adds up to almost exactly 1,000 kilometres. So essentially the plan is get up, have breakfast, run a marathon, have lunch, run another marathon, have dinner, go to bed, rinse and repeat. Wow. That's the aim. Whether I can actually do that, we will find out. And the cause is for a fabulous charity called James Place, which provides urgent life-saving support for men in suicidal crisis. Sorry to bring the tone down for a second or two, but I think far too few people are aware that amongst men under the age of 50, suicide is the #1 cause of death in this country, which is staggering. And I'm not saying that all of those were preventable, but for want of a timely intervention, many of them might well have been. So this is an opportunity to literally save some lives. So if anybody can help with any contributions, however small as they say, if you go onto the Just Giving website, do a search on Keith Burge, Burge, you'll find my page with all of the details on. And for any other town fans who might have accommodation in Suffolk and Norfolk, at the moment I'm sleeping rough, literally. I've had some very kind offers, including from town fan Martin Berry, who's putting me up in Chelmsford on the first night. And any other offers, sofas, bits of floor, garages, I don't care, very gratefully received.
It's a fantastic charity and fantastic cause that you're raising money for. We'll share out the link and put it in the description as well, so people can find it there. So a fantastic cause, and good luck with your run. We'll have to make sure we share regular updates and see how you get on. If you make it all the way there in the time that you're planning, that'd be a phenomenal achievement. But it'd be a phenomenal achievement wherever you do, because obviously I'm just actually went onto your Just Giving page and I see there's a nice total jumping up there. So hopefully you can get to your target as well.
Let's hope so. Thank you.
Brilliant. So let's jump into the games. Some interesting points to talk about. And let's get into it. First game, Notts County. Obviously, after 2 wins, went into Notts County game, and I think maybe just almost just reflecting on these wins is we've won against some pretty big sides in terms of their league position, not necessarily their stature. But obviously here in this podcast, we've got the Notts County game to talk about. This Accrington Stanley win, the Salford win. Obviously, Notts County and Salford doing well this season. Accrington Stanley actually since like November time, like they're actually in the playoffs in terms of their results. They started the season really poorly, but they've been picking up some fantastic results and sit very comfortable now. And obviously then we played Walsall, which we lost. But yeah, no shame in that. And yeah, interesting game. The Notts County one at home, Mike. And yeah, your one of your kids was the mascot that day.
Yeah, my boy Gene was a mascot, which is a really good experience. We'd previously done it with him before when what's his name? Matt Taylor was manager. And it wasn't a great experience. Matt Taylor didn't really make much of effort with the kids, and the team were very disconnected, and we felt like a bit of a sideshow. That we were just there as parents and the kid, and it wasn't brilliant. Then we did it again with my daughter, Michael Appleton's first game in charge. Again, I didn't think it was a great experience. I didn't think the manager made much of an effort with the kids, and we were sort of, again, the kids got to run out with the players, but other than that, you were kind of shuffled around a bit. That's no disrespect to the lady Trish that organised it, who does a fantastic job. It's just the amount of access and interaction she gets from the playing staff. It's what makes it for the kids. And it couldn't have been more different when we did it on Tuesday night. Gav Cowan came down and spent a good 10 minutes talking to me and my mate, whose son was also doing it. He made a good fuss of the kids and was saying, put loads of effort in during the pre-match and we'll see if we can get you on the bench next week, and just made him feel very special. We also had a very long conversation with Dave Edwards, who came and talked to us. He was quite open, like Chris said, when his son did it, about the tactical side and about how they were going to let the centre-half have the ball because they only have to play long diagonals, which will mop up. And actually, Dave's explanation of the tactical approach for the evening, it was like, he says, Gav can see in the future. It was exactly that. Everything he said was going to happen, happened, and we got the result as well. So it was a real breath of fresh air, the whole mascot experience. I thought it was really good this time. And it lives or dies on the interaction and the sort of the camaraderie that the players and the manager bring to the kids that do it. So another thumbs up for the club. It also helped that we were meeting a lot of the people who helped my father-in-law when he had his cardiac arrest at the Meadow. The update on that is that he's doing really well. He's back at home. He's, if you see him, you wouldn't know anything wrong with him. He's had a mini defibrillator fitted, which is a kind of mad thing to think about, walking around one of them. But I suppose just because we mentioned it on the last pod, the update is Bob's doing really well and he's hoping to be back at the Meadow as soon as he can. And we're trying to we have to sort of calm him down a bit. He wants to go back already, but we're saying, no, come on, Bob, get well first. But that's the update. But yeah, the match itself against County, like you said, it was on the back of, we got to bring the other team into this. Swindon that we beat. These results that we've had, we've not accidentally won them. We've not shithoused them. It's not been backs to the wall, hit them on the break, get a lucky goal. It's been good performances. And Notts County was another one where we came in with a very clear and strong tactical approach. It's not about dominating the ball. It's not about passing teams off the park. It's very be compact, be deep, be tight, hit the ball into the corners, chase the channels and get crosses in. But it's incredibly effective again. I thought, much like the Swindon game, we took the game to County early. Then we see possession for a large portion of the middle of the match, and then we try and hit them late on with extra energy from the substitutes. And so it proved with a good 1-0 win. And again, a game that we were like, I'll take a point now, after the results we'd had previously, but to roll another win on top of those was fantastic. So it was a great night all around, really. I was very, very positive about it all.
Yeah, it's a game that we dominated with and without the ball. Obviously, defensively, Cowan has really set the team up really well. Going on to something that you mentioned there, Mike, it's so important, isn't it, Keith, for a team of the size of Shrewsbury to have connections. And yeah, there is something quite special, I think, and maybe can be overplayed. But yeah, I think it'd be interesting to get your perspective. I think it's quite interesting having a management team with a connection to the club, and whether it's mascots and stuff, but. I don't know. It feels like that Cowan has been able to build a connection with the Shooty Town fan base very quickly.
I mean, it's these details, I think, that really matter. It's all of these small things, these small interactions with the fan base across all sorts of... It reminds me a little bit of, and sorry for the historical reference, but when Don Revie took the manager's job at Leeds United, the first thing he was asked to do was sack the groundsman. And he's like, I'm the manager of the football. And he says, I want loyalty from my players. And the first thing you want me to do is sack a member of staff. Ain't doing it. If there's a problem, we'll sort it out. And they sorted it out. And there's little things like that, little story, little interactions, which start to, breed a much more positive atmosphere. I mean, it's horrible. I've not had the mascot experience, but I've been in other situations where you feel like people really can't really be bothered with you. It makes you feel terrible. Yeah. And it makes you then feel really bad about your kids and all the rest of it. And it really doesn't take much, does it?
No.
That investment of 10 minutes of the manager's time will spread. It'll spread through this podcast. Everybody else who does this experience will have the same thing. I'm sure it wasn't just for you, Mike. It was for anybody who signs up to that will get the same really, really good treatment. And it really matters. So
it's interesting on that point. On the night, that was the night that Harry Burgoyne was there as goalkeeper coach, surprisingly. And when we turned up and people started noticing him on the pitch, and it's gets out on social media and stuff, it starts to build a little bit of another positive bit of like vibes momentum, if you know what I mean, which then rolled into Joe Hart turning up at Salford. And you've got to start thinking the players will pick up on that, the management team will pick up on that, and it really builds into the crowd then. And yeah, I think Gav, he's good at finding those little levers to pull. So, this will get us up a bit. This will give us an extra % here. So yeah, that local connection is massive, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, and look at the crowd on Saturday. Was it 7,800? When was the last time? Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that wasn't just about the positive results. That was about people feeling a connection to the club again. I think I want to go back there again because it's the feeling, the vibe, whatever, is something I want to be part of.
Yeah, I mean, living locally, it's noticeable how many more people talk to you about the town since Cowan's took over, and it's about Gavin Cowan being there, about Dave Edwards being there, about the good results and stuff. And it's noticeable how much more engaged the local community is. And you can gauge that, you go to work on a Monday and nobody talks to you about Shrewsbury if they're just in the doldrums, not doing very well. And as soon as the results sort of pick up, you hear people saying, I think I might take my lad down on Saturday, actually. We don't usually go, but we might go and take a game in because they're playing well. And that's exactly proved on Walsall on Saturday. Big crowd. Sadly, we couldn't get the result. And I've got a theory that we never play well in front of crowds, really. I think if you looked at our 10 highest attendances, they're probably all losses, is the truth of it at the Meadow. But yeah, you can just feel a bit of a swell of sort of people being interested in coming and watching the town. And if we put another little run together and make some of these fans sticky, it's early bird season for the season tickets. Things can snowball a bit, can't they? Yeah.
And going back to the performance on the pitch, and I think you mentioned, Ollie, about looking more defensively solid. I actually think that solidity was throughout the team. It really was kind of defending from the front. And the thing that I was absolutely staggered by was suddenly I'm watching a team that there is a structure, there is organisation, there's a plan, there's an overall plan, and there's a plan for every player. And you could see it very clearly. Players saying, right, no, I'm not going to go chasing the ball. I'm not going to go chasing into the other half to close down. I'll wait until once they've crossed the halfway line, then we'll close them down. This is my area of the pitch. I'm going to make sure that I'm going to boss this area of the pitch. And it was a complete transformation to the headless chickens that were running around under Michael Appleton. It was stark. Clearly the management team have to be given every credit for implementing that in a very short space of time and obviously very effectively.
Yeah, no, definitely. And yeah, I don't think that Notts County can have too many complaints. It was a game that I thought that we dominated well. They didn't have any big chances today.
You used the word dominate there. And I heard that and I thought, I don't remember dominating. And I went back and looked at the stats just now while Keith was talking. We only had 26% possession. And that makes you feel like, we haven't dominated. Actually, Notts County have had all the ball. But then you look at the XG. We had a better XG than them, and they had 12 shots. We had 10. So they had a lot of ball. But the way Keith's talking about us being very narrow and compact, and them us letting their centre half have it, they passed the ball around a lot, and it always ended up with that centre half who lumped it forward, and we soaked it up, and then we tried to break. And so it's funny how when you say dominate, you think, oh well, I don't remember us having the ball much, but actually, it's not how much of the ball you have; it's what you do with it, isn't it? And that's definitely the sort of the way that this management team is setting the team up. They don't want to dominate the ball. Actually, I think in subsequent games, we've tried to have more of the ball and we've looked worse for it as well, I think. When we try and do too much with the ball, we sort of overdo it a bit. And I think Saturday we were a bit guilty of that, trying to overplay at times and spinning the ball back to the goalkeeper instead of wanging it in a channel like we've been doing. So yeah, I don't mind it as a setup if it gets results, and it has been up to this point, I think.
Yeah, a stat I saw when I was going through the numbers is Platt, their central centre back, had something like 130 touches of the ball, and Boyle had 30. Yep. And we do get the ball forward much quicker than say Notts County do.
Yeah, and it was letting them have the ball in areas of the pitch where they couldn't hurt us. So the possession stats look high, the passing stats look high, but they're knocking it round in an area of the pitch where they're not going to hurt the town at all.
No,
we
definitely didn't in much risk, and the goal from Dale Perry is really good as well. I think we because the way you play like that, you've always got to rely on a bit of quality or a bit of luck just to get that one goal you need, and then if they're not going to hurt you, all you've got to do is get the one, and that was it. And it's a great strike from Perry, isn't it? But we did all right that night. Yeah,
there's a couple of obviously themes going through the change in results. But going into all of them now, one of them is obviously being clinical in both boxes. I think Cox is phenomenal. His impact has been absolutely phenomenal. In terms of goals prevented, he's the fourth best goalkeeper in the division in terms of goals prevented from a statistical point of view, even though he's only played less than a third of the games of the rest of the goalkeepers in the division he was competing with in those stats. So his impact has been huge. And again, he had another good game against Notts County. I think he probably had a better game away at Salford, but a really good performance there. And then we obviously went to the... Go ahead, Mike.
As I say, it depends on what type of game you're talking about. Against Notts County, he was unbeatable under the cross. He claimed so many high balls. He was extremely brave, extremely dominant. His performance against Salford, his shot stopping and his saving was what was standout for him. But I really like a confident. He doesn't look the biggest, does he? He doesn't look particularly tall. He doesn't look particularly broad, but he is extremely brave, and his coordination to come over the top of bodies and claim a ball. And he doesn't just punch it away; he claims it and he takes it. I think it's a real strength for him. Plus, his shot stopping is good. The only thing that lets him down a bit is his kicking. I think. I don't think his distribution is particularly good. But you can't have everything, can you?
No. He's doing well, Keith. I'd say.
I don't know how big he is, but it's when I saw him and Joe Hart on the pitch at Salford, he actually wasn't that much shorter, which surprised me because I didn't. But I think maybe that's his personality. He's quite kind of reserved. He's not very demonstrative, and he's probably one of those who's probably a bit bigger than you think he is. But I don't think there's any doubt that Cox and Morgan have been absolutely the two standouts. And it was interesting. I was chatting to somebody at the Accrington game who was sort of, if only Cowan had come in a month or two early, whatever. And I thought, well, yeah, but we wouldn't have had Cox and Morgan then, would we?
Or would we? I mean, what's our recruitment department doing? Are they all sat in their hands? Have they got anything to do with this? Everybody's saying how great Michael Appleton
it's a really good point,
as a scout and a recruiter, but we've got a recruitment department, right? So you can't just hang all this on Appleton and say we kept him around for his contacts. Yeah, we've got there's a head of recruitment there. I'm hoping he's got something to do with some of these.
Yeah, Appleton may have claimed a bit more credit than maybe he was due.
So I think he's been awarded it. I give that man almost zero credit for anything. So
no, it's a fair shout. Both of you guys went to Accrington Stanley away. I was on holiday for this one, but I managed to watch the game, and it was an interesting performance, Mike. You're looking back doing the agenda. It's like a 2-0 win. We haven't had many 2-0 wins in the last few years.
No, and it felt like quite. I don't want to say routine because in all of these matches,
I was thinking the word routine.
We've had to ride our luck a bit at times, and Accrington they created some chances. I think they started quite strongly, although we started very strongly by scoring after sort of 40 seconds. Accrington didn't retreat, sort of shrink away from that. They were quite strong, and you can tell that a lot of what Accrington do goes through Wally. I think he's noticeable because we spot him as an ex-player, so we probably spend more attention on him than anybody else there. But you can tell at the start of the match he's extremely effective, but he tires quicker now. He's obviously an older footballer, and he plays in a much different way he did for us. He used to stick out on that touchline and go up and down and whip his crosses in, didn't he? For Accrington, he was drifting inside and he was finding all these little pockets of space, sort of in and around Sang and Perry, in between them and the defence. And he was causing us a lot of troubles with his movement, which we struggled to get to grips with. And actually, the changes that were made at half-time really resolved that for us. In terms of, I think he took Perry off, didn't he, and brought on Freeman and just shored it up in there a little bit. But credit to the town. Again, it's Gav Cowan. We get off get off to very strong starts in halves, don't we? Under Gav Cowan, we try and take the game to opposition, try and get a foothold in the game, and that Morgan, he's full of confidence at the moment, isn't he? Got his goal from cutting in off the left hand side. It was a hell of a finish, and then to go and get the one early in the second half, it sort of killed the game from then, I think. And as Worley tired, we saw the game out quite comfortably in the end. We didn't feel like we were under any threat. I mean,
no, it wasn't the game they made this halftime subs. That was against Salford.
Oh, was it?
Made halftime subs, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's me.
But yeah, it was routine. It was a routine win, and it felt almost like, I don't know. It was really strange. It was a sense of calm as well. Even without the ball, we have a sense. I feel as a fan, I'm watching the team. There's a sense of calm. But yeah, you were there, Keith. What was your kind of like one word, if you try and summarize the game? What was your kind of thoughts watching?
Well, sort of unusual in the sense that I wasn't expecting to see such a good away performance as they delivered. And again, there was a quiet confidence about the team because everybody knew what they had to do, and they all did it extremely well. I don't think there was a bad performance on the pitch, and there were a number of very good performances. And I think the one player who I was surprised seems to have gone under the radar somewhat was Ruffles, who I thought was absolutely excellent. The number of times that he was covering for Mal Benning's defensive frailties, should we say, just moving across an interception, and of course going forward, the little flick-ons, whatever. I think he has really blossomed in that new role on the left of the three at the back, as opposed to being a very good footballer trying to play midfield, which is what he was doing for many weeks, most of the time since he's come into the club. But they were all round just really good, and I'm not used to it this season. It was just so a surprise is how I would have described it. A very pleasant.
Yeah, Keith, what's your perspective on Appleton, on Cowan, and the management team putting players like Lucas in midfield, Ruffles in defence?
What round pegs in round holes?
Yeah,
that'll never work, will it?
That's pretty what you said, Mike. I think the weekend. In a WhatsApp.
I said it on,
on Saturday. It's quite stark the number of changes he's made. Cowan in that regard.
Yeah, and Ruffles seemed so much happier and comfortable and assured, and that I'm sure can be said of other players as well. I think, as I said before, you have to credit the organisation. That's the first thing he's come in, and he's basically said, "You're there. You're doing this in this area of the pitch." The discipline. I mean, I haven't been the biggest fan of either Perry or Sang, but they were both very good and were more disciplined than I've ever seen them play. They were controlling their particular area of the pitch, never strayed out of it, never tried to do anything overly complicated. Just they've been given a brief and they work to that brief.
I think, sorry to butt in. I do feel like I've done them a disservice there. They were good at control. I was getting confused with the Salford game, like you say, and they were a very effective combo in there, marshalling that line in front of the back four, like you say, and Worley was giving us difficulty, but they did deal with it well. It's just too many teams in red in the rain on crap pitches. I've watched. Too confusing, isn't it?
All these wins just blur into one. No, I think it's a fair shout to praise for Perry and Sang. As we said, against Salford, Perry was a bit tired, but I'm not going to be too critical of the players. But they've played a hell of a lot of games. And while it obviously would have been very physically demanding to play this many games, we haven't rotated too much. We obviously did in Salford. We saw 1 or 2 changes for Warsaw. I think also mentally it's been probably quite draining for them as well. It's quite clear, isn't it? I have to say the press conference. Was it the Salford? No, was it? No, it was the. Was it? I can't remember which game it was that Dave Edwards did a post-match interview. Was it Notts County at home? Notts County at home. Dave Edwards did the post-match. One of the best post-match interviews I've ever heard. It was brilliant from a Shrewsbury Town perspective. Having a Shrewsbury Town fan talking about, literally first terms, we did this, we did that, which was really nice. Again, another masterstroke for the management team is, a great opportunity for Dave Edwards to praise the management team and not obviously Karen praising themselves. So again, to those got Keith said earlier, those small decisions all start building up. I almost forgot my point now. Yeah, it was a really, really performance from Perry and Sang, and I think a lot of credit for their hard work has to go into the performance they put in. And again, just going back to, we said it at the start of the season, didn't we, Mike? That League Two is midfield is just about running. Like
midfield, it appears to be watching midfield. It appears to be watching the ball go flying over your head and running after it. And then watch the ball flying over the other way and running after it that way as well. Because there's not a lot of football played through the middle, is there? And it's all about legs and energy and discipline, keeping in your shape, without the ball, getting back in your spots. And they can do that. Yeah. That's we can set up to make them effective footballers. What Appleton was trying to get them to do is just not playing to their strengths at all, is it?
No, which was odd on numerous occasions he was doing that. And obviously, you mentioned earlier Keith Morgan, obviously with a superb strike. You can't really begrudge him when he does have these strikes sometimes. Sometimes he could pass the ball and make that better decision, but he's a youngster and he's going to have those situations. But I think another player is probably due a lot of credit, Keith, was Huell obviously popped up for that second goal. And yeah, it's not the first time he's popped up from a Ruffles flick on to get the ball in the back of the net. Another good performance, I thought, from Huell on Saturday for the Stanley.
And again, I've really liked him, even under Appleton when he was on the right of a three at the back. I thought he's been consistently good. And he is one of those who will gamble and get himself into an area where he can, in that case, put his head on the ball and stick it in the back of the net. Again, coming at a lovely time. If you're scoring at the start of the game and early in the second half, you're really setting yourself up, aren't you? And he delivered. But he was excellent defensively again, and he has showed on more than one occasion that when he gets in the box, he can find the back of the net. But getting back as well, Ollie, to you were asking me about my thoughts on Cowan, and one of the things that I neglected to mention, but I probably should, is that it's nice to see a manager making kind of fairly bold decisions during the course of a game. How often is it we've watched a game and Chuck Zaniki gets put on with 2 minutes to go, and well, it's not going to come on. Whereas half time, we'll have two subs, please, because something's not working and we need to put it right. When was the last time we saw a manager at Shrewsbury doing that kind of thing?
I think his name was Steve Cottrell.
Yeah, it's been a little while. And so I think, again, the fact that Cowan is prepared to make whatever changes need making when they need to be made is another really positive sign, rather than thinking, I'll give it another 10 minutes. No, do it now. We've got to get this sorted.
No, it's a really good point. I think we all saw that on Saturday, didn't we, against Walsall as well?
Yeah, I think it shows he's got quite a lot of faith, or he's showing a lot of faith in the squad. There were times when we would name bench under Appleton, and you could tell that he didn't trust any of the lads on it. He had 11, and if that didn't work, he didn't really want to try anybody else. Whereas Cowan, bringing Benning back into start, even bringing Stokes back into the fold, he's showing the players that he's going to give them all an awful lot of faith and a lot of trust. And all that really works for me, I would say. It's another sort of effective performance. Yeah,
no, good performance. Yeah, very, very pleased with the Stanley one. That also put us in quite a good, much better league position as well. And obviously, league position was going to go even better on Tuesday night when Tuesday Town were playing. And there was, I think, only one other game in the division on the Tuesday night. I think there was a game on the Wednesday as well. I think Harrogate were playing on the Wednesday. And yeah, went into the Salford game. The Salford one was always going to be an interesting one. Salford, as we know, spending a lot of money and got a big budget for this division. Got quite a character as a manager, let's say. And obviously going to this game was going to be a big test. And also we played a lot of games back to back. We went into this game and Carl Robinson is known as a streaky manager. He has a lot of wins and he has a lot of losses, and it's always quite interesting when managers have that and also do that at other clubs as well. So he's done this at numerous clubs. He's had these streaks, hot streaks and cold streaks. And obviously we were hot going into this, and quite a few people were, talking about Shrewsbury now. A lot of people had noticed our performances, fans and pundits alike. And we went into this game and it was another test, a different test, obviously going away to Salford. I have to say, I think their pitch was terrible. Maybe they need to spend a bit of money on that. It was atrocious. And it wasn't a very good first half, was it? Let's be honest. So, we conceded a very strange deflection. We nearly scored. Morgan nearly scored near the end of the half, and then they scored a weird deflection. And at half time, Keith, I was quite disappointed, really. I don't think we deserved to be losing. think Salford can be quite lucky that they went in the lead. But yeah, it wasn't. It was probably in this run of wins, it was quite a subpar performance in that first half. Is that fair to say?
I think that's very fair to say. And although it was a really bizarre own goal, you couldn't, I think, argue against the fact that probably there deserved to be one down at half time on the balance of play. It's difficult to tell really what the matter was, but they seem to be just sort of stuck in some old bad habits. They weren't at it, and I think that actually came through in some of the post-match comments, and the need to kind of really get into the players at half time and G them up, and that I think was doubly interesting, given that it wasn't just another away win; it was an away win coming from behind. So the previous game at Accrington, you score a goal after 30, 40 seconds, you're immediately on the front foot. Well, here there could have been a real danger that they're going, oh, here we go again. That was a freak result. We're now back to type. We're losing. It's we're on this horrible pitch. It's all going against us, and we'll just shrink into our shells. But they didn't do that. They came out second half, and I think the second half performance absolutely justified the win.
I say that. Yeah. I think this game was the first signs of the fatigue kicking in for the 11 that we're sort of wringing dry at the moment. And we just like first half, exactly what you say. We were what we've been good at is getting that second ball, is winning that little duel to get the bouncing ball, and on a pitch like Salford's, a game of actual football was never going to break out. It was all about the second ball, and we were just slow to it. Just didn't seem to be able to get off our blocks as quick as the Salford players, and that's presumably why we had the double sub at halftime, which is something you don't usually see. Is about freshening the legs up, and some of those guys that have played an awful lot of football in quite a short period of time, and probably exactly like Keith says, gives a good reason why the second half was that much better, I think. But in this one, we really rode our luck in this one. Looking at the highlights earlier on, just to prep for today, Cox's saves, they hit the bar. They had a really strong end to that game, and we really had to fight for our lives to keep the win and not sort of let another one in for the draw. So I think that probably what we saw there bled a bit into Saturday as well against Walsall with instant tired legs and not competing for second balls a bit. We were a bit worse at that again, I think, on Saturday. So maybe that was just the first signs of it, that it was creeping in.
Yeah. But I think they also, and again, it was a strange feeling. I'm so used to seeing periods in a match where you think the opposition are going to score here, and yet there was something that was telling me that, in spite of the fact it was back to the wall, they were really battling for it. That block or tackle or whatever it was by Anderson right at the very end,
massive,
it was absolutely outstanding. And it was the kind of thing which you weren't seeing happening 8 weeks ago or whatever. And in spite of the fact that, as you rightly say, Mike, they put us under real pressure, I actually thought we're going to see this out. And that's not something that I've actually felt for quite some time.
Yeah, no, it was a really good thought. Yeah, Cox made a good save to hit the crossbar, didn't they? Yeah. It was a good, Salford, I think we deserved the win in what we kind of did without the ball. And I thought it was really interesting as well that Salford, I felt, how to put this, it wouldn't be too detrimental to our style. Our approach at the moment is needs must, isn't it? I'd hope that we're not going to be this defensive. Hopefully next season we can have bigger ambitions, and we can. I'm sure. I can't imagine Cowan and Edwards and co going, we want to finish bottom half of the league table. We want to be more ambitious than that. And I'm sure a kind of more attacking approach will be required. But needs must where we are now. And I thought it was interesting that Salford almost came down to our level in that regard. Is that they played very attacking football, and there was very direct football, and there was parts of the game where the ball just wasn't on the ground; it was constantly in the air, and I almost took that as quite a sign of respect from Carl Robinson, that they basically almost tried to go toe to toe with us, and they spent a lot of money. You would expect, wouldn't you, that they brought on players who played for Liverpool. You think they'd be playing a bit more better football than that.
I think it might have been a sign of respect to us or a sign of disrespect to his groundsman, because I just could not believe that they have all this money spent on players on that pitch. And there's no way you can play football on it. It's sticky and muddy in patches, and so I think they've got to go direct because it's an inconsistent surface that they're playing with as well. But also, I think if you look at the way we play, you've kind of got to bombard us a bit as well. We're very difficult to play through because we just put 11 people between the goal and the ball. So probably arguably your best chance of getting this is going down the sides, whipping crosses or playing balls from deep and just trying to battle for that second ball. So as much as our approach is horses to courses for our players, I think when you're playing against us, you've probably got to get into that bit of a battle. Again, probably bleeding into Saturday a bit. I thought Walsall played us like that. I don't know if that's the way they do play anyway. They're quite direct and play for free kicks and stuff. But again, I think we'll have to watch the next few games. Our team's working us out a bit, and are they happy to go toe to toe and try and sort of out direct us a bit? We've got a history of being vulnerable. I think,
yeah. Walsall was always going to be a set piece game, and it played out that way. But I think it's also quite interesting, mate, that you do look at the fixture list. We've got a week now before we play Chesterfield, then another week before we play Cheltenham, which I think is going to be interesting, gives the management team and players a bit of time to recuperate.
Yeah, that's good.
And then, again, while we're talking about fixtures, I might as well just talk about then the third game is Bristol Rovers away on the 17th of March, which is a massive, massive game. And another 3 games in. I think there'll only be 8 games left after that, I think. So if that's my maths all right.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, so that game is going to be massive, and hopefully we can pick up a few points for that game. But that's going to be interesting. But yeah, I think fatigue, and I'm not going to be too critical of the players. You probably maybe say Appleton and maybe didn't get them that fit. It's also something that always comes up, doesn't it, Keith? That managers talk about former manager. I'm going to make these players fitter than they've ever been before, and the other manager wasn't really doing his job properly, without saying though he wasn't doing his job properly.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't see that the players have suddenly got fitter at this stage of the season. But I think they're probably using their energies more effectively.
Yeah.
Being deployed in a way that is using.
And it's that 1%, isn't it? That 1% extra belief, 1% of extra determination. I don't imagine we would have had that Anderson tackle, and the way the players celebrate as well. There definitely seems to be an improved togetherness, Mike. Obviously, you were very close to the pitch at Stanley.
Yeah.
Did you get a sense of the players? Because for me, I've watched a few of these games, and obviously a few away games, and also I was on holiday, watched a few games online, and you see, it feels like there's more camaraderie among the players.
Yeah. I was much close to the pitch for the Notts County game, because where you sit as a mascot is quite down the front of block sort of 5 or 6, I think. And then at Stanley, you're right on top of the pitch, aren't you? There's only sort of 8 rows there, and maybe not even that many. And you can get a much better feeling that not only are the players talking to each other more, and there's much more interaction between the players and geeing up and enthusiasm. Gav Cowan is noticeably, obviously, more interactive than Michael Appleton was, because Michael Appleton stood stock still. Now, before him, we had Gareth Ainsworth, who leapt about like a leprechaun. He was an absolute. He was quite far the other way. Gav Cowan's closer to the Ainsworth model in that he's very remonstrative. He shouts onto his players. He's moving people with his hand. You go there, you come over here. He's kicking every ball, but noticeably from him, it's not sort of over the top. It's just really direct. It's really focused. It's really loud, but you can see the content to it. When I was at the Notts County game, I could see him shouting over at Cox. And he was saying, when you go up, he was tapping the top of his thigh. He was saying, bring your knee up, defend yourself with your knee when you go up for the ball. Make yourself a physical thing. And it's that sort of little bit, tits of bits, and he's giving information to Benning, and he's taking it on board. So he leads from the front. The players are all talking to each other, but you can see the players interacting with the crowd a bit more, because the crowd are cheering their names and supporting them as opposed to booing them and telling them they're shit. They'll look over and they'll thumbs up and they'll give a clap. And when we score, they're all over to the crowd, Morgan diving in to the crowd at Accrington. And the crowd feed off that, the players feed off the crowd. And the sort of the vibe, for want of a better word, is very positive. And it's a really nice place to be in the away stand at Accrington when you're 2-0 up and your team are really loving it. And it's really nice. It's been really well done by the management team. I mean, they're very, very beholden to the results. 5 wins, it's always going to generate that kind of environment, isn't it? Yeah, it's it wouldn't be.
It's how you respond to it as well, though.
Yeah,
and you build that momentum. And those little bits, I'd say, keep interested. Get your perspective on this, because you're in that crowd
Yeah, and it was noticeable. I wasn't actually kind of looking for it, but you couldn't help but notice the fact that so a player put in a good tackle, chased the ball down the channel and won a throw in deep, and the other players were applauding when they were then running back. They give them a slap on the back. You could just tell that they really were supporting each other in a way that I haven't seen for most of this season. And in terms of what's going on from the touchline, I always thought that a lot of Ainsworth was kind of performative. Hello, look at me. I'll shout. But what are you shouting? Or is this just all a bit theatrical? Whereas Cowan it's specific instructions.
Correct.
It's coaching from the side.
It seems targeted.
It's targeted. Yes. It's focused, and it's designed to add value. In the moment. And I'm pretty certain he's not doing it because he thinks there's a camera on him and he needs to be seen to be doing something. I think he's oblivious to any of that. He's wanting to get a message across to one or more players, and that's it. To tighten something up, to improve something somewhere on the pitch.
And what do you guys think about this? Do you think it has? Do you think the Appleton quiet demeanour on the touchline? Like, what impact do you think it has, like, on the players, Mike, and secondly, also the refs?
I think it can leave the players, especially the season that we've had. When Appleton took over, we were a bad side, and then the start of the season has been a disaster. They need some direction, because quite often in our team things were going wrong, and they're looking over at the bench, and the guy stood there with his arms folded, and they're like, "Okay, we've got to work this out ourselves, have we?" And then you've got 2, 3, 4 people having a roundtable conversation in the centre circle. They've all got different ideas. They've all got different things that they think we should be getting done. There's no one clear directive voice. So now if the manager's not bringing that to the table, but then every 5 minutes, Brian Jensen's up shouting something off his pad, there's no clear direct message. It's not coherent. It's not sticking to a plan. It's not reinforcing the basics. I sent you lads out there. You've not done it right. Sort it out amongst yourselves. So I think it's really negative. And then if the fans can't see that, that's the other way a manager shows that he cares, is a little bit of sort of, demonstrable energy on the side of the pitch. If it's going wrong and then the manager doesn't look like he cares, it's a recipe for disaster, isn't it? So I think they've got to be shown to be also earning their money as well. We can all pick an 11 and hope it works, but it's that in-game management. It's the targeted specific directions that Keith's talking about. It's the substitutes you're making at the right time in the right areas, which when you look at Appleton, you look at Cowan, it's absolutely night and day between them, isn't it, at the moment?
Yeah, no, do you have anything to add there, Keith? And what's your preference in terms of manager approach on the sideline? I think it definitely, for me, the players I'm not 100% sure, to be honest, but I'm confident that I've made it work against Walsall. But I think a manager who's in the ear of the fourth official and talking to the ref is going to have an impact.
I think that's all been proven to be the case for from Alec Ferguson onwards. You get in the officials' ears. You might not get the next one. You'll get the one after that. Eventually, they'll crumble. That's almost human nature. But I think, and I'm not comparing Cowan to Ferguson in any other respect at all. But I think with Cowan, it's not just you. I see you do see managers who are quite performative, and he's not that, and he's not losing his rag overly. He did a little bit, I think, in Walsall, not getting the sub on when he wanted to get the sub on and whatever. But that was the first show of that. Generally, he's kind of firm but quite calm. And I think, as you say, it must be absolutely soul destroying as a player when things are going wrong and you need somebody to tell you how to sort it out, and you look across and you're getting nothing. Absolutely nothing. That must be absolutely soul destroying. And what does that lead to? It leads to players mouthing off at each other. Oh, we should be doing, no, don't do that, do this. But and then you get all the discord, which it felt like that there was under Appleton.
And it all seems to come through Aaron as well.
Sorry, Ollie, whether you agree or not, if you get clear direction, you do what the manager's telling you, boom, at least you kind of know where you're going and all right, if it doesn't work, he's got to take it on the chin. But at least you as a player feel supported, feel directed, feel like you know what you're supposed to be doing on the pitch.
Yeah, no, sorry. I would also say as well, it all comes through Callan, which for me seems quite intentional. It's not one person here randomly doing that, one person doing that. There's a bit of a hierarchy. There's a lot of discussion, as a council on the sideline, which I think is always good to see. Edwards and Jamie jumping in there and having a conversation, but it definitely seems to be a bit more organised. And it almost seems like even that has a plan. How are we going to handle ourselves? How are we going to handle ourselves on this touchline has a plan, rather than what sometimes seemed a bit of a haphazard approach from Appleton.
But yeah, I always do say this is all in the view of things when they're working really, really well.
Yeah, 100%.
And if we go on a 3-4 game losing streak now, we'll be interested to see if we look back on these conversations and think, God, we got really high on the high moments, didn't we? But you can only judge it on what we've seen so far, and it does seem very structured and coherent. But I wonder, when things weren't quite going our way against Walsall, like he says, it did get a little bit fractious. He was in the fourth fisherman. The ref was poor on Saturday. I don't usually criticise refs. I thought he was terrible.
No, we don't normally do.
But you can see, he's definitely got potential in him to lose his rag on the touchline. I think, and some of his comments post match, I believe he was a bit critical of the rest without overstepping.
Yeah, he was very critical.
To say the least.
Yeah, so maybe let's just go. So the Walsall game was a funny game, wasn't it? It was always going to be an interesting one. They sold out the away end. Sometimes we've had 80 away fans. They brought 1,600. It was a good atmosphere from Shrewsbury Town. Shrewsbury Town fans are still warming up. I think it's going to take, many months of, I'm sure there'll be some Walsall bonehead online going, "Oh, Shrewsbury fans are rubbish." Well, yeah, we've had 3 years of crap results, mate. It's going to take time for us to kind of warm back up again and get kind of that unity in the stands again. It's going to take time.
And I think lose the nervousness as well. When things are going well, the place is rocking. But as soon as the opposition have 3 or 4 minutes where they have the ball and get a couple of chances, we completely go back in on ourselves. And I think, oh, right, this is going to go wrong any minute, because that's what we used to.
Yeah, we did. And obviously, they scored from a set piece. We scored from a set piece. Morgan's finish was fantastic. And then they score from a set piece again. And then obviously, we talked about also when you talk about Ruffles being sending off. I've watched it back in real time. I didn't see it, to be honest. I can't remember where my eyes were, but I didn't really see it. I've watched it back. It's one of those modern ones. I think back in the old days, looking at the photo behind you, Keith, black and white photo of players in the 70s and 80s, the referee probably even knew. We wouldn't even thought it was even a remotely a foul back in those days.
I also had to watch it again today just to convince myself that what I thought I'd seen. And you only had to. I know players will play act, but I thought that Ruffles' response was entirely genuine. He could not believe that the ref had shown him a red card. Just could not believe it, and I don't think anybody in the ground could either. I was even thinking that was he thinking that the player would have been through on goal and he was the last of all? What possible justification has he got? And it was it was a high foot. It was a free kick. If you were being a bit harsh, you might give somebody a yellow, although there was clearly no malicious intent. For it to be a red is just a joke, and I'm sure it will be overturned.
You sure?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, but there've been a number this season. I haven't got the stats to hand. I'm not Chris, but there seems to be an increasing number that have been overturned. Which I was reading that somewhere. And I think
it depends on the definition.
Extraordinarily good case. Because it is so very clear. It's not one of those where you see someone sliding in, was it the trailing leg? All of those kind of things. It's quite a clear-cut one.
I think the problem we have at our level to get things overturned is only ever one camera angle. It's always miles away. So they can look at it and you can say the foot was high and they're coming in at quite a bit of speed. You can't see what level of contact there was. The referee's the only person who puts it. If the referee is putting his report, serious foul play because there's contact with foot to head, you're not going to get it overturned because there's no other argument against it. There's no other angles on it is the problem.
No, I believe they have appealed, or they put in.
Well, they're going to appeal, yeah.
Well, he didn't actually say that in the post match. He said that he almost hinted they were going to. He never said he definitely would.
Yeah.
So I imagine they'll watch it back.
Maybe again, I misread it somewhere else. I picked it up somewhere else where I saw.
Yeah, well, I think the BBC. Obviously they're doing things live and quite quickly said they were going to appeal. But when I listened back, he didn't quite say that, unless he said something off air to Stu Dunn.
Sure. No, I agree. In the post match, he didn't say that. He hinted at it, but I thought I'd read somewhere else today that they were going to do so. But maybe that was a misinterpretation of Karen's comments.
Yeah.
And I absolutely take your point, Mike, that very often it isn't clear. But although there's only one camera angle, it's pretty clear. And there didn't appear to be any contact with the player. There was no injury, no mark on the player's face or head or whatever.
I don't know.
So, well, we'll see. But I mean, that potentially means... Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, I said they should appeal it, but I can't see it getting rescinded. I just don't think there's enough clear evidence that overrules the referee, probably.
Yeah, well, and if it doesn't, of course, that creates a problem because you know, if Hall is out, that's two of the back three. And I have to say, when Stubbs came on, I thought he was terrible.
Yeah.
Shocker.
Talking of performances, there was quite a few, wasn't there? Let's be honest. Perry had a really good bad game. I thought that Benning had a really bad game. Stubbs was atrocious going on his distribution. Huell is. I really do hope we can sign Huell up to an extra contract extension in the summer. Stubbs' distribution was woeful.
Very bad.
And there was
interesting that he brought Stubbs on before Anderson.
Yeah, but I guess you want to play.
Was on the bench, wasn't he?
Yeah, I can't see Anderson playing right.
When he came on against Salford.
But he came on as like a fourth centre back in that game, didn't he?
Right. Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting because Stubbs has been quite far away from it, and Anderson's been in and around the squad, but clearly Stubbs is higher in the pecking order for that particular sort of role. I suppose. Yeah.
No, definitely. But like obviously, we didn't need to do it to death, but Walsall for me just felt like it was a game of set pieces. People can go and have a look if they want. Over 10 years, very rarely talk about the ref on Twitter from a podcast perspective, and also on when we're recording podcasts, we very rarely talk about the referee. But the referee was really poor. He did seem quite biased in his decision making, but also there was no hurrying them along at all. There was 7 minutes of extra time against Salford, and there was 4 minutes against Walsall. When their goalkeeper wasted, and there was never at any point where he blew the whistle, okay, but he didn't do anything to kind of hurry him along. And also when he randomly booked him a yellow card, it was if like, I've appeased them now. But there was a lot of time wasting from Walsall, and it was frustrating. The thing I find frustrating is like there's an issue, they implement some kind of guidance to stop time wasted, and then they stop. I don't understand why they do these things. It's very bizarre.
I don't know. The whole time wasting thing. Moan about it when it happens to you, but don't say anything when we do it. It's sort of, we didn't win or lose that game on the strength of there not being enough added time.
But it was just part of the
poor officiating. Yeah, I think the free kick he gave for I think it was their second. I didn't think it was a free kick, and that came back to bite us as well. I thought he was really poor, but I thought it was a poor game all round. I thought it was a bad game played by two real percentage football teams. Nobody really tried to play any football. When they did, they got it wrong. They converted 2 of their set piece chances. We converted 1 of ours. We had chances to convert a couple of others. Boyle's header at the end. Sang's sort of scuffed effort that he got all horribly wrong. Morgan's free kick in the first half that nearly goes in. On another day, we get a draw out of that. I don't really think either team deserved to win it, and they just got the bit more effective in the opposition box, I think, and that was sort of it. And I walked out, and I wasn't too disappointed with the loss. I think this team have pulled up trees, have done wonders in the last few weeks. It would have been nice for it not to end against Walsall, but also I thought the manner of the performance in the loss is that we went toe to toe, we created chances, and just we were a bit tired. It just sort of wasn't our day. I think was my overriding thought on that one. Give them a week to rest and sort of go again next week. But I'm not panicking. I'm not sort of throwing my toes at the pan on that one. It was just one of those days. It felt like.
Yeah. What's your thoughts?
That's a very, very fair assessment. I'm always reluctant to suggest any referee is biased, but I think ranking competence is absolutely what it was. It was just bizarre. Some of the decision making or the lack of decision making. Was beyond belief, but that is not to suggest for a moment that the refereeing decisions were the reason that they lost the game. They lost the game anyway. I think perhaps Walsall were a bit better than maybe we're giving them credit for. I mean, they couple of wide players up front who, and particularly, dare I say it, down Mal Benning's side of the pitch, look quite threatening at times. And they were just cuter.
I think Cuter is probably just.
Yeah, I think they were targeting our left side a lot. They were, because that's the left side of our pitch is Perry's the left of the centre midfield too. You've got Benning playing left wing back, and then you've got Ruffles, who is a full back playing centre half. And all of their sort of long balls, all of their free kicks, their percentage plays, they were all going into that left channel. And Mal had a bit of a terrible day, and he was pulling Ruffles out of position all the time, and Perry. And that's why those three had bad games, is because they were really targeting the three of them. And it really worked for them as well, I think.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
as I say, they were just cuter, winning free kicks that weren't free kicks, delaying stuff. They played the ref like a fiddle.
Yeah. Is it Flint, their centre half with the long hair? We really struggled to get hold of him all day. He dominated his box, and he was a real pain in our arse in our box as well, wasn't he? It was him that headed the ball over for their second, wasn't it? They got the flick ons. He was really good on the day.
Obviously, he does move. He's just moving. Obviously, he's played in the Championship for Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously, he's a talented footballer. But we kept kicking to him as well, which was frustrating. And it's one of those days. I don't think many Shooting Town fans are going to begrudge the team, losing that game against a team that's been building momentum over the last couple of years. Obviously, Sadler came into that game under a lot of pressure. Their fans are very angry from last season when they kind of threw away a good chance of promotion. And obviously gives Sadler a bit more time as well. I imagine they'll be in League Two next season. But who knows? Cool. Any final comments on the Walsall game?
Well, I just think it's going to be really interesting to see how Cowan responds for Chesterfield, and whether his view is they were just a bit tired with a few days off. We can pretty much go again with the same team, notwithstanding potential suspensions and injuries, or whether he thinks actually there is a danger of us being found out a little bit, and maybe we need to take a different approach. I suspect not. I suspect he'll probably stick to the formula that served him well in those 5 games at least. But he won't be able to turn out the same 11, that's for sure.
Yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. Hopefully, Ruffles' suspension is going to be key. Losing both Huel and Ruffles, I think, is quite a concern. Fingers crossed. We are successful if we do appear with Ruffles, and hopefully Huel isn't out for too long. But losing both of them would be obviously a big part of the change we've had is we've talked about Cox, we've talked about Ruffles, but I think that kind of like almost like a box, Sang and Perry, Huel and Ruffles has been a key kind of frame to our extra pace and solidity. And if we lose, them,
because that lets Boyle just do all the defending, doesn't it? And at the start
of
the season,
I think Boyle has been brilliant as a leader as well.
Oh, and that goal at Salford, by the way, how did we not mention that? He's up there,
that finish is superb.
Yeah, it was excellent. What did I say? Boyle on door. That's what his new nickname, isn't it? Yeah.
I think Boyle, a lot of credit for Boyle. Obviously, Marcus has been injured. We should injure anyone, but Boyle's record as captain is quite solid. And he's
that's the concern now, because the big problem at the start of the season was the lack of legs in Stubbs, Anderson, Boyle. And if we've got to go back to that against a decent Chesterfield team, we might be sort of back to square one a little bit until we clear up the suspension and injury. So that is a concern. You're right, Keith. I'm a bit worried about that myself.
Yeah, and there's no suggestion that Cowan believes that Lee is ready to step in. So it looks almost inevitable that we're going to go back to the back three that served us fairly badly in the early part of the season.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Interesting to see what happens there. That team selection away at Chesterfield on Saturday the 7th is going to be interesting. So obviously covered the games there. I think it's still worth just kind of reflecting on a couple of numbers for Cowan. So he's managed 8 games now, 5 wins. That's a win ratio of 62%, which is just from a Shooting Town perspective is just phenomenal. With a bunch of players obviously that have been here all season. In there's 5 wins, obviously, as I said, 3 clean sheets, 2 defeats and 1 draw. We drew obviously to Barnet. Lost to away. Who did we lose away to? We lost away to Colchester through a decent side, and then at home to Walsall. So I don't think that's not sort of too bad. One kind of question, maybe we kind of bring the podcast to a close. I'm just looking at the clock. It's gone fast tonight. I'll go to you first, Mike. Like, are we almost safe now? Do you think, or do you think we still need a few more points on the board?
What a question. the pessimist in me, I'm not even looking at it still. We just need to keep getting points on the board. I think, I don't know, the mathematicians might say we're probably safe, but I mean, the spreadsheet's really loving it. If Dan was on, he could tell us how well ahead the spreadsheet is. But I just want to see us continue to put in performances as well. I hope the team aren't thinking in terms of are we or aren't we safe, because then people start to switch off. People start to look what they're going to be doing next season, what contract situations are like, and the wheels can come off fairly quickly. I hope Cowan's keeping them on a game-to-game, point-to-point basis. I'm never sure we're safe until we are safe, so I'm not falling into that trap of writing the rest of the season off. I think, what's he say? It's 11 more battles to win the war. So yeah, I think we've got to keep that mentality. Talk of safety is for the summer, I think. But with that said, they've made a massive contribution to safety. This 5-game stretch, it won't be, if we do get safety, which is looking much more positive than it was, you can't overlook how important this has been, and they've done a tremendous job. So they just need to carry that on, really.
Yeah, that's it. And I would agree with all of that, Mike. And I think, fortunately, that Cowan's mentality is exactly that. He will not be resting on his laurels. He will not be thinking, we're pretty much there now, we can cruise through to the end of the season. He will want to get the most he can out of every single game, because I'm sure he's a very kind of proud man. He wants to be the best manager he can be. He wants to get the most points he can possibly get. He wants to see Shrewsbury finish as high up as they possibly can, so he can say, look, that was me, I did that, that's my added value. We didn't just stay up finishing third from bottom or whatever. We're in a respectable position, and I think that's exactly what the club needs, is somebody who's going to be on it every single game, and I think that's going to be what's going to take us statistically over the line. But yeah, I'm still thinking, what if we went on a 5-match losing run? Oh no!
Exactly, it's certainly possible.
Yeah.
Cool. So yeah, I think let's bring the podcast to a close there. And thanks, Mike and Keith, for joining us. Obviously, as you said, we've got 11 games left. Some interesting ties. Obviously, got Cheltenham, who we're actually ahead of Cheltenham in the league, which is phenomenal considering how well Cottrell did when we played them. They were miles ahead of us, and now we've caught them up.
They've got 2 games in hand, haven't they?
Yeah, they have, but obviously the fortunate thing is that they haven't been winning so many. But it'd be interesting to see that'll be an interesting game. Obviously, at home as well, with Steve Cottrell coming to the Meadow, that'll be interesting. So that'll be an interesting time. Obviously, they lost a lot of players actually since we played them on Boxing Day. A lot of players have a lot of change there. So thanks for joining. Maybe just to kind of close the podcast again, Keith. Maybe just remind us the charity you're doing the run for.
So I'm going to be trying to run from the Thames to the Tyne over 12 days, 2 marathons a day, from the 23rd of April onwards into the bank holiday weekend at the start of May. And it's in support of James Place, which has its most recently opened centre in Birmingham. So fairly accessible for people in Shropshire, Mid Wales who need that kind of support, as well as also another centre in Liverpool where you can go and get the help that you need when you need it. So if you can visit my Just Giving page, searching for Keith Burge, Burge, you'll find all the information there.
Brilliant. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Keith. Great to have you on. And
thank you very much for inviting me.
And Mike, I thought you were going to have a final say then. Or you were going to say something.
Oh, no. Well, if Salop family, all support Keith as much as you can. Get on that Just Giving. Yeah. And if there's any haylofts and empty barns on the way that he can get a kip in for a night. I don't like to think of Keith sleeping out in the rough. He needs a nice warm bed after 2 marathons. So support him where we can. But a fantastic thing, Keith, and all the best of luck from us, I think.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Cheers everyone for listening, and hope we'll be back again in a couple of weeks.